This guy didn't avoid interest. He made it zero. He walked into a bank, took a loan, and paid nothing extra back. No tricks, no connections, no cheating the system. And that's the part that confuses most people, because when you hear something like this, your first reaction is simple. You assume it's either fake, rare, or something that only works for a small group of people. So the real question isn't whether it's possible or not. The real question is, what did this guy understand that most people completely miss? Most people, the moment they need money, rush to the bank and ask, "How much can I get?" It's an emotional decision. There's pressure, urgency, and a need to solve a problem quickly. But this guy didn't start there. Instead of focusing on the amount, he focused on the structure. He asked a different question. How does the bank actually make money from me? And that question changed everything because it shifted his thinking from reacting to understanding. What this guy discovered is something simple, but extremely powerful. Banks don't just make money from lending money. That's only part of the story. The real money is made through time. The longer you stay in debt, the more interest builds quietly in the background. It doesn't feel heavy in the beginning, but over months and years, it adds up significantly. So instead of trying to avoid interest completely, which most people think is impossible, this guy focused on something much more controllable: time. Because if you can control time, you can influence how much interest you pay. And in some cases, like this one, you can eliminate it completely. Now this is where things start to shift. This guy didn't go for a traditional loan with a long repayment period. No 3-year commitment, no 5-year plan, no extended burden that slowly drains your income. Instead, this guy looked into short-term opportunities, specifically offers that provided 0% interest for a limited time. These offers are more common than people think, but they're often misunderstood or ignored. Some people don't trust them, while others misuse them completely. But this guy didn't either. He didn't blindly trust the offer, and he didn't ignore it either. He studied it. He read every condition, every clause, every timeline, because he understood that these offers exist for a reason. They are designed in a way where most people eventually slip up. They delay payments, miss deadlines, or carry balances longer than they should. And that's exactly when the bank makes its money. But this guy approached it differently. He didn't see the 0% interest as free money. He saw it as a limited time advantage, a window where the usual rules temporarily shift. And instead of getting comfortable, he stayed focused. In his mind, this wasn't flexibility. This was a countdown. To make it practical, let's break it down. This guy borrowed $3,000 on a 6-month 0% interest deal. Now, for most people, the story would end there. They take the money and figure things out later. But this guy's process was the opposite. Before he even accepted the loan, he already had a complete repayment plan. He knew exactly how the money would be returned. $500 per month for 6 months, no delays, no confusion. This wasn't based on hope. It wasn't based on, "I'll manage somehow." It was calculated, and it was structured. It was already decided before the money even entered his account. And that's what gave him control. Because most people treat borrowing as a solution. But this guy treated it as a responsibility with a deadline. Now here's where most people make a critical mistake. When they see 0% interest, they feel safe. There's a sense of relief, almost like pressure has been removed. And that's exactly when discipline starts to drop. People borrow more than they actually need. They justify extra spending. They delay payments because it feels like there's plenty of time, and slowly, without realizing it, they lose control. But this guy didn't fall into that trap. In fact, he did the exact opposite. He limited himself. He borrowed only what he could realistically repay within the given time frame, not what the bank allowed. That's not what looked convenient, only what he could control with certainty. Because he understood a simple truth. The moment you overextend yourself, you lose control. And once control is gone, the system takes over. During those 6 months, this guy didn't make extreme lifestyle changes. He didn't isolate himself or cut off everything. Instead, he made small, intentional adjustments. He reviewed his expenses, removed unnecessary spending, and delayed purchases that weren't essential. It wasn't about suffering. It was about focus. Because in setups like this, timing is everything. One missed payment, one delay, or one wrong assumption can completely change the outcome. In many cases, if the balance isn't cleared within the promotional period, interest isn't just added going forward, it can be applied retroactively to the entire amount. And that's where people get caught. But this guy was aware of that risk from the beginning. That awareness shaped his behavior. He didn't rely on motivation or discipline alone, because he knew those things fluctuate. Instead, he built systems. Payments were automated. Reminders were scheduled. Progress was tracked regularly. Nothing was left to memory or chance. Because he understood that small mistakes in financial decisions don't feel big in the moment, but over time they create consequences that are hard to reverse. And here's something that makes this story even more interesting. This guy didn't just follow the timeline, he beat it. He completed the repayment before the 6-month period ended. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to stay ahead. Because he followed a principle that most people ignore. Speed reduces cost. The faster you clear your obligations, the less control the system has over you. From the outside, it looks like a hack. It looks like this guy found some secret method to beat the bank. But when you break it down, there's no hack involved. No shortcuts, no hidden tricks, just awareness, discipline, and strategy. This guy didn't do anything extraordinary. He simply avoided the common mistakes that most people make. And sometimes that's all it takes to get a completely different outcome. Most people focus on the visible part of a loan, the monthly payment. They ask, "Can I afford this?" And while that question is important, it's incomplete because it ignores the bigger picture. This guy focused on the invisible part, the timeline and the total cost. He didn't just look at what he was paying each month, and he looked at how long he would be paying and what that would add up to over time. And that shift in thinking changes everything. Because once you start thinking in terms of time instead of just money, your decisions become sharper, more intentional, and more controlled. So when people hear that this guy took a loan and paid 0% interest, it sounds unrealistic. It sounds like a rare situation or a lucky opportunity. But it's not. It's a different way of thinking. It's about understanding how financial systems are designed and making decisions that don't fall into the traps built into them. This guy didn't try to escape the system. He didn't avoid it or reject it completely. Instead, he chose to understand it. And because of that, he was able to use it on his own terms. And that's the real takeaway here. You don't need to copy exactly what this guy did. Your situation, your income, and your needs will always be different. But the mindset, that's what matters. Start questioning how things work instead of just accepting them. Pay attention to timelines, not just amounts. And most importantly, don't confuse financial flexibility with freedom, because flexibility without control often leads to mistakes. But when you combine flexibility with awareness and discipline, it becomes a powerful advantage. And once you start thinking like that, something shifts. You stop being someone who just uses financial products, and you start becoming someone who understands how to use them correctly. And maybe then, you won't just take loans, you'll control them just like this guy did.